Hello, everyone. My name is Lora Tchekoratova, Artistic Director of Salon de Virtuosi. And today I'm speaking with Llewellyn Sanchez-Werner, our featured pianist in the upcoming May 3rd premiere of Salon de Virtuosi's Musical Soul of Hungary concert, which will feature a group from Hungary, a string quartet. It will feature Llewellyn and also Bella Horvath, violinist, who is a Salon alumni. And this is a cross-cultural experiment, really, because we have musicians recording here in New York, we have musicians recording in Hungary, and then we'll put it all together in one continuous concert for you. So be sure to tune in on May 3rd, right here on YouTube. The concert is dedicated to Charlotte because it's her birthday. It's very close to her birthday, and we want to honor her Hungarian heritage. And naturally, the theme of immigration came up, and how important Ellis Island, for example, which is one of the pieces Llewellyn will play, is for the immigration, and how important immigration is for this country, and particularly for the arts, how many great composers found their home here in New York, including Bela Bartok and Mahler, and you name it. Rachmaninoff lived here. So this is where I want to start our conversation. And actually I want to start it with your name, because everybody sees you have a really fantastic name, Llewellyn Sanchez-Werner. So what is your background? What is your family story?
Sure. So I am a New Yorker, but I was born in California. But the Sanchez is from Mexico, where my mother was born before she came here when she was 7. Werner is German, Polish, Jewish. Llewellyn is Welsh, and those are both from my father's side. So it's a melting pot of many different places.
Yeah, so you're an American, real American. That's really part of this. So one of the fascinating things that I wanted to tell you guys about is that Llewellyn is one of those rare cases that goes to college at what age? How old were you when you first went to college?
I would have been 5 when I started there, yes.
Seriously?
Mhm.
You were 5?
Yes, I was 5 when I started taking classes at Ventura College, and then I started my undergrad at Juilliard when I was 14.
14. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, both are impressive, but 5, my goodness. What class did you take when you were 5 years old?
Well, I was very lucky to have had a very well-rounded education. It was history of Western civilization, science, literature. It was a little bit of everything. And that served me well to then have a much more artistically focused education, of course, at Juilliard in my teenage years and through now.
Yes. Yeah, I see. So early on in life, you wanted to have a unique education. So basically, that's the reason why your parents and you wanted to go to college early, to take classes early. And that's really fascinating that you chose music as a profession, because you have quite a wide variety of talents. And so why music?
Sure. Well, my mom was a lover of the arts always, and she actually played the violin when she was very young. And she took me, growing up in Southern California, to the Hollywood Bowl. She took me to hear the LA Philharmonic. She would play recordings at home, and not just music. Also, she would read to me at home, and we would go to museums. She tried to expose me to as many mediums of the arts as possible. And it was the piano that I kept going back to in the living room. And so when I was about 2 years old, she wanted to start getting me lessons. And the piano teacher said, "Oh, no, I don't teach anybody that young." So then she went in saying that she would have a lesson for herself. And afterwards, I played a little bit, heard some things by ear, played them on the piano. The teacher was convinced. And then my lesson started there. And she has been a wonderful inspiration and mentor for me ever since.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Age two, as a piano teacher, and I can tell you that if a parent asks me for lessons for a 2-year-old, I will probably say, wait until they're at least three, maybe 3.5 or 4. But yeah, I mean, there are some kids who are special. That's why it's important that we look at each person, each individual based on what they need, their abilities. And this is incredible that your parents had this vision and early on inspired you and helped you get introduced to the arts and become a musician. Of course, you have you went to Juilliard, you went to Yale, you have performed all over the world. One of the fascinating things that I noticed in your career is your involvement with social action. And can you tell us a little bit more about that, your interest with music to dedicate to social issues?
No, I'd be happy to. I think that music in general, classical music, absolutely, but other genres as well, have a very rich history of social activism. I think of Sibelius composing Finlandia as a subtle protest against the Soviet Union censorship of the press in 1899. I think of Leonard Bernstein performing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony on both sides of the Berlin Wall right before it came down. Or Dudamel performing the same symphony with the Simon Bolivar Youth Orchestra. There are so many examples, and I really believe in the idea that we can take our role of the performer and turn it into being the role of an ambassador, going beyond the stage, bridging divides, connecting people through this healing power that is so imbued in music. And so with this in mind, I've done work in various countries in Iraq, Rwanda, France, Canada, the United States. In Iraq, just as one example, I performed with the Iraqi National Symphony Orchestra in Baghdad, and it was a cross-cultural exchange. We had American soldiers, Iraqi civilians of all ages, ambassadors in the audience. We played music by European composers, American composers, Iraqi composers, and even though the musicians of the orchestra were so committed to giving back selflessly to their community, they did not do so without risk. There were musicians who would carry their instruments in sort of concealing containers, not instrument cases, so people would not know exactly what they were walking with on the street, because they would receive threats from those who were against any form of artistic self-expression, but especially coming from a Western style. And so working with such courageous and magnificent people, again, so selfless in their dedication to give back to their community, was a great inspiration for me. And I think that I always want to share music with as many audiences as possible. So anytime we can go beyond the pieces themselves and have a larger purpose, I welcome this very wholeheartedly.
Wow, that's really, really terrific, and so impressive that at such a young age you are so deeply involved. And of course, music is a great way for cultures to come together, and traditionally forever it has been a way for people to express their feelings and to get involved intellectually and spiritually, to connect with each other.
Yeah.
Famously, Bela Bartok, for example, I keep bringing him up because he's not only because he's Hungarian, but he's such a great mind, and his ability to bring together Eastern European music and Arabic music and make it his own. I mean, study it to a point where it becomes his own, and he creates this new language, really, which combines East and West. And that's something that all artists forever have been fascinated by. Think about the French, who were influenced by African American music. And can we talk a little about your program? Of course, we focus on the big piano guy, Liszt, but you also are talking to us and performing other composers. So tell us a little bit more about the pieces that our audience will hear on May 3rd.
Sure. So yes, I did want the program to focus on Liszt. However, I did not know that the name of the hall was Bartok Hall. So I should have included a little bit of Bartok, but next time, next time.
Next
But yes.
time, exactly. No worries. We have Bartok quartet after that. So
Okay, good.
We'll play. Yeah, you get some of that. So.
But no, but of course, Liszt, the Hungarian master, somebody who was such a fascinating individual, not just as a pianist, but as a composer, as a transcriber, as a human, as a teacher, as a pedagogue. There are so many facets of Liszt's legacy which transcend generations, and I wanted to explore some of these different facets. So I start the program with Widmo, which was a song originally by Schumann, transcribed for solo piano by Liszt, based on a beautiful poem, which I'll read a little bit for the audience. And it really shows Liszt's ear, his ability to orchestrate using the instrument to take all of the various colors possible and best express them with this instrument, which he so loved. From Widmung, then I go into Mazeppa, which is straight from Liszt, and he actually would himself transcribe that solo piano piece into an orchestral tone poem. But although he wrote the music, there's a little bit of interdivisional collaboration going on because it's based on a poem, originally an epic poem by Lord Byron, and then a much shorter poem by Victor Hugo. And this poem is really amazing. It depicts Ivan Mazeppa, who, if I really condense the story, was having an affair with a Polish countess. The count is very upset, wants to punish Mazeppa, strips him naked to a horse, whips the horse so severely that it flies throughout Europe, dragging Mazeppa's body on the ground behind it, over cavernous rocks, rough terrain. And it's torturous for him. But as he's on his journey, he looks up and he sees the stars, the gods, visions perhaps of hope. Eventually the horse dies. A group of Cossacks find Liszt, hear about his journey, and proclaim him their king. So it's a really incredible story. And then you see how Liszt transcribes the piece for piano. So it's really interesting. He writes in one moment the same fingers, 2 and 4, to be used on each of those double thirds. It's a purposefully very awkward fingering. Yeah. And there's a much easier way to do it where you just connect it with 1, 3, 2, 4. He wanted it to be awkward to depict the awkwardness of the horse's journey, of being bounced from rock to rock on the road. Yeah. Kind of taking a visceral and visual element and putting it into the sound. So anyway, this is all very interesting. Then from Mazeppa, another transcendental etude, Ricordanza.
Yes.
Which shows Liszt's more crystalline, tender, sensitive side, long lines, rich sonorities, cadenza-like, shimmering. But then, I wanted to go a different direction. So skipping to the end of the program, I put Rachmaninoff's last etude tableau in D major. Now, why? Because Rachmaninoff was not Hungarian. However, Rachmaninoff studied with Salotti, who studied with Liszt. And then Liszt studied with Czerny, who studied with Beethoven. So on both ends, going up and going down, there's a wonderful pedagogical lineage that Liszt is connected to. And I wanted to show that, as an example of how Liszt's legacy informed people going into the 20th century, since I was at the Hungarian consulate in this idea. And then going back to the piece right before that, by Meredith Monk, female American composer, still alive, writes evocative minimalist music. In this piece, you'll hear waves, ringing bells, a certain kind of mesmeric, entrancing style of music. And then to me, there's a moment when, because the piece is called Ellis Island, there's a moment when maybe the traveler on a ship sees the Statue of Liberty. There's a certain inner awe that I feel comes in the music. And I thought, since we're at the Hungarian consulate, there have been so many Hungarian Americans who they have worked with, who they help support, since the universal immigrant experience so runs through that building and through the city, why not include that in this program? So that's it.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. And I was really inspired. And I think Erica White, also Charlotte's daughter, was inspired because she said, oh my goodness, my grandparents came through Ellis Island. And you know, that place was really something very important, an important, there is a museum. I've been to the museum once, and I don't know if our audience has been, but if things reopen, it's definitely worth visiting, because you can see, you know, the suitcases, what people brought from Europe, lots of pictures, many of them coming in their national dress.
Right.
And many of them changed their names when they came in, because they wanted immediately to, you know, have names that can be pronounced easily in the United States. Today we are keeping our names. That's more of the modern tradition. And again, coming back to your name, Llewellyn Sanchez-Werner, it's great to hear all these, you know, different sounds in the name. How about when you perform? Do people sometimes come to you and ask you?
Oh, all the time. Oh, of course.
Yeah. Where it's coming from? Yeah, I was wondering. Okay, well, what else is happening in your life these days? Of course, you probably had to stop a lot of engagements. And did it feel like a relief in the beginning, being able to stay home and focus on other things?
Well, I think that it turned into that, what you're talking about, an incubation period, a very positive time. It started out being quite distressing, I think, not only because we're witnessing this incredible loss of life all around the world, which is, you know, way more important than anything else, but even going to the personal, yeah, things are canceled, concerts are postponed. So no, it was very distressing. But then once we realized that this was going to be here to stay, I think I had to figure out how do I best take advantage of this time? So the first thing was everything is becoming virtual now. So just like we're doing right now, so much virtual, I realized that I needed to turn this instrument, which I've practiced on for years, but never thought I'd be performing on, into a performing instrument. So I had to learn how to tune the piano. So I got all of the tools. I've gone in, you know, fix some broken strings, pour some solution into the fulcrum, you know, learn about listening to all of the partials, all of the overtones. You know, that was a whole process.
Wait a minute. You learn how to tune your own piano. Okay, now I wasn't impressed you went to college at 4 years old. Now I'm impressed because it's famously, everybody knows pianists don't know how to do anything inside a piano. So did you watch YouTube? I mean, how did you learn? I'm afraid to touch. One time I tried to tune a violin and you know, the string snapped right away. So how did you do it? Did you take a course, or did you just know from before? Like,
No, I did not know from before. One thing was just to do a lot of research, to be proactive in doing research online. But there was somebody who, there was a pianist who actually had tuned pianos before, who was able to give me a little bit of information to get me started. So I called him. And then we met over Zoom, and he helped me figure out a few things, and then just did more research. So yeah, and there's actually an app, by the way, iStrobosoft, unintentional plug for the app, which is really helpful as well. It allows you to you know, make sure that you're focusing on your ear, but if you need any additional help, it can take it the rest of the way.
Yes, because I know you know, some tuners use a little device to help them, but most actually use the ear. So you must have perfect pitch, right? Or
I have absolute pitch. Yeah. Do you have perfect pitch?
I do. Yeah. So that's I suppose in many ways it's a good thing, and sometimes it's not, because if things that tune differently, like if I play once we played like a Baroque piece, and the piano was tuned differently, so that I had trouble reading. So you have to sort of adjust your ear to that.
Right.
Yeah. So when you have perfect pitch, you were able to tune your piano, and then were you performing regularly from home, or?
Yes. Then I was. So it was the tuning. It was getting a recording equipment, and then it was performing. I was lucky to be busy during the pandemic, because a lot of the venues in which I would have performed suggested the idea of doing something virtual, a virtual concert that then could be sent to subscribers and to keep them interested, and then, you know, when this all ends, we'll go back and do something live. But one thing that I particularly enjoyed, one series, was something I did for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a Llewellyn and Friends series, in which I would perform solo, but also invite some other people. We had a violinist, we had a poet, wind ensemble, cellist. Trying to think if there was anything else. There's a couple of other things I'm forgetting, and so we did both in-person collaboration and even a couple of things, syncing tracks from afar. And yeah, I had at National Sawdust in Brooklyn. That was my first experience ever playing with a violinist, in which we both learned the music, rehearsed over Zoom, and then recorded at different times. Totally antithetical to the normal chamber experience, obviously.
Yeah, but how did you play together on Zoom?
No, we didn't. We would rehearse on Zoom, discuss ideas, go through the score, but no, Zoom is too finicky for that. So no, right. We would just one person would put the track down, and then somebody else would play with it. But we explored some interesting themes. I mean, last summer was a tumultuous time, obviously, in many ways. So there was a program for focus on Black Lives Matter. We had a program on the 19th Amendment, 100th anniversary, granting women the right to vote. And most of all, Beethoven's 250th anniversary, which was absolutely marred, tragically so, by the pandemic. I mean, we were all preparing for all Beethoven orchestra concerts. Nothing happened. So every concert had Beethoven. I played a lot of Beethoven last year. That was important to me. So yeah, I think just it was good to try to be taking advantage of as many relevant themes in the moment as we could.
Yeah. How about composing? I know that you're also a composer. Have you spent this time writing your own music? And can you tell us a little bit about your composition career?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. No, I have spent a lot of time during this pandemic composing. I think it's been that has been one thing that I've been particularly grateful for, I think, because with things slowing down just a little bit, there's been an opportunity to write a lot of music. And, I still carry with me, I studied composition with Lowell Lieberman when I was younger, and that was a very important inspiration for me. I think that it's such a wonderful opportunity to express in your own notes, in your own words, ideas. And, I love composing. I also love improvising. This is something that helps you know your instrument much better and can really free you, both in terms of compositional thought and in terms of just performing genuineness and meaning. So yes, no, definitely I've taken advantage of this time to do that. Yeah,
that's terrific. That's really terrific. Well, it was lovely to see you. It was wonderful to talk to you. It was great to have the recording last week. And again, our audience can hear you live on May 3rd at 7 o'clock on the Violin Channel on Facebook and on the Salon de Virtuosi YouTube page. And we look forward to presenting you to our members and our friends in person as well, as soon as that's safe and possible. I can't wait for them to meet you and get to talk to you in person in one of the famous Salon de Virtuosi receptions, which one day they'll come back. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you and putting this together with you. And thank you very much for having me, Laura.
Thank you too. Thank you.